Good morning. Is that on? Can you hear that, Ms. Robles? Can you hear that? Can y'all hear me? Is this thing working? Are you sure? Okay. Excellent. Hi, parents. Welcome. We're so glad you took the time to come out this morning, and we hope that you join us for our picnic in the afternoon back in the classrooms. Fourth grade kids have been working really hard and learning a lot about Texas, and they're very excited to get started. And we're already live streaming, so if you have anybody at home you want to tag it on Facebook, it's posted, the link, so you can share it out, and people at home can start watching right now. So let's get started. Go for it, fourth grade.
In the 1820s, thousands of immigrants moved to Texas. They brought with them customs and ways of life that were not like the Tejano way of life. These customs and beliefs caused conflicts with the Mexican government. Texans and Mexicans did not see eye to eye. Language barriers and freedom of religion were just some of the problems Texans faced. On April 6, 1830, a law was passed to stop settlers from settling in Texas. This angered many settlers who wanted to bring their families with them. This was the last straw. The Texans wanted their freedom back. The dictator Santa Anna had to be stopped. The revolution would soon begin.
Welcome to the Battle of Gonzales by Ms. Lopez's fourth grade class. It all begins on October 2nd, 1835.
That cannon is ours! We need it!
Meanwhile, the Texans were burning the cannon in the peach tree orchard. Yucateche was very angry. He chose to send Lieutenant Castaneda with 10 men.
Go get that cannon!
The Texan army is led by John Moore. He and his soldiers decide to transport the cannon from the orchard to the Guadalupe River and show it off to their enemy. This shot caused Mexican soldiers to leave with one death. Texans lost no soldiers. Ladies and gentlemen, the Texan Revolution has begun.
The Battle of Goliad was the second skirmish of the Texas Revolution. In the early morning hours of October 9, 1835, the Texans crept stealthily to the fort near the town of Goliad and attacked the Mexican army soldiers stationed there.
The Texans split into 4 groups to surround the fort. Using axes they borrowed from the townspeople, they approached the entrance to chop through the door. A guard saw them and sounded the alarm before he was shot and killed.
The Texans quickly chopped through the door and took control of the Mexican soldiers. The battle only lasted about 30 minutes before they surrendered. One Mexican soldier had been killed and 3 others wounded. The Texans had only 1 injury.
Through the victory of Goliad, the Texans acquired $10,000 worth of food, weapons, and other supplies from the Mexican army. These much-needed supplies, including cannons, were shared with Texans at forts throughout the area.
The surviving Mexican soldiers were told to stop fighting the Texans and leave Texas immediately. This proved to be a bad decision on the Texans' part.
On February 21st, 1836, Texan scouts discovered Santa Anna and his 5,000 soldiers 8 miles south of San Antonio. The 180 Texans who lived at the Alamo were surprised and began preparing for an attack by molding bullets, gathering food and water, and strengthening the walls. The Texans were led by James Bowie, a frontiersman from Louisiana, William Barrett Travis, a young attorney from Alabama, and David Crockett, who came from Tennessee with 12 volunteers to assist the Texans in fighting for independence. All 3 men refused to give up the Alamo to Mexican forces.
Travis became the leader of the Texans when Bowie became sick with pneumonia after a canyon fell on him and a broken rib punctured his lung. Travis was worried the Texans were outnumbered and sent a letter calling for aid. Travis said he would rather die than surrender, using his now famous words of victory or death. After many days of canyon fire from the Mexican army, it seemed victory at the Alamo would be impossible for the Texans. It is rumored that Travis grouped his men in the plaza of the Alamo and, using his sword, drew a line in the sand. He told volunteers they could leave if they wanted to, but if they crossed the line, they would stay and fight with honor.
On March 5th, a bitter cold wind blew through San Antonio. After firing cannons for many days, Santa Anna ordered Mexican cannons to be silenced in hopes the Texans would rest. On the morning of March 6, 1836, Texans woke to 3 sounds: the blast from a bugle that signaled the Mexican army to attack, the rumbling of thousands of feet charging on the cold, hard ground, charging from all 4 sides of the Alamo, and the Mexican song El Degollado, which meant that no Texan life would be spared. Texans fought back with cannon fire and successfully pushed back the Mexican troops. On the second wave of attack, Mexicans led by General Cos tried to use ladders to scale the walls of the Alamo. Texan sharpshooters prevented Mexican soldiers from successfully getting over the walls. Unfortunately, Texans cannot stand a chance against an army ready to sacrifice thousands of men. Mexican soldiers fought their way through the northeast wall and were now inside the Alamo fighting face-to-face with the Texans.
During the 90-minute fight, nearly all the Texan soldiers were killed, including William Travis, who perished while fighting on the front lines alongside his men, James Bowie, who fought bravely while sick in his cot, Davy Crockett, who fell to the Mexican soldiers with his favorite rifle, Old Betsy, in hand. Even though outnumbered, the Alamo defenders managed to wound or kill over 1,600 Mexican soldiers. That was a victory in itself. After the Mexican victory at the Alamo, Santa Anna decided to let women, children, and slaves go free. This small act of mercy allowed Susanna Dickinson to escape. She was sent to find Sam Houston and Gonzales and deliver a message of warning. The cruelty of the Mexican soldiers at the Alamo led many Texans and Americans to join the Texas Army and fight Mexico.
After many Texan soldiers died in the Battle of the Alamo, General Santa Anna led his troops toward the Texas coast, raiding and burning every settlement in their path.
General Sam Houston was in the town of Gonzales when he heard that the Alamo had fallen and was devastated. He ordered his troops to retreat and commanded all Texans to flee toward the Colorado River in order to be safe from Santa Anna's troops.
Conditions during the runaway escape were terrible. The weather was cold and wet, and the lack of food and water brought horrific diseases. Spring rain flooded rivers, making it very difficult to cross. Some people were killed by Mexican bandits. People were buried on the road in the exact spot where they died.
What's this word again?
In Goliad, Colonel James W. Fannin, along with nearly 400 young men who had enrolled to help Texas prepare for battle with the Mexican army, they knew the Mexican army was approaching. They readied their weapons, which included cannons, rifles, and muskets.
Despite their best efforts to prepare for battle, they were not in the greatest health. Colonel Fannin's men had very little supplies and fresh water. Additionally, a great number of men were wounded, and their fort was not very secure. Little did they know, Mexican General Jose de Urrea was heading right towards them.
On General Urrea and his 450 soldiers arrived. The battle began. Realizing they were outnumbered, Fannin attempted to lead his soldiers to safety. However, they soon found themselves surrounded and were forced to surrender. Fannin agreed to give up their weapons and become prisoners of war. Sadly, General Santa Anna had other plans. He gave the orders to execute all the Texans who had surrendered. Following these orders, Mexican soldiers marched the Texas soldiers into a field and shot 342 of them. Some men tried to escape and swim across the river. Most were still shot, but some managed to escape. One brave woman, Señora Francisca Alvarez, offered her home to those that escaped and later became known as the Angel of Goliad.
Word of the gruesome massacre of Goliad reached Texans quickly. More than ever, Texans were determined to rid themselves of Santa Anna and the Mexican rulers. Now the Texans cried,
On the morning of April 19, 1836, General Sam Houston led what was left of the Texas Army close to present-day Houston, where the Buffalo Bayou meets the San Jacinto River. They camped near the edge of a grove of trees. Their defenses were protected from behind by the bayou. In front of them was nothing but an open prairie.
The next day, General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna came marching across the prairie, but shots from Texas cannons called the Twin Sisters stopped him in his tracks.
On the morning of April 21st, Sam Houston sent a spy named Dave Smith with a small group of men to destroy Vince's Bridge, thus cutting off the only way the Mexican army could escape across the river. When Sam Houston gave the order, the Texas soldiers did not hesitate. With shouts of "Remember the Alamo" and "Remember Goliad," the Texas army defeated the Mexicans in a battle that only lasted 18 minutes.
As it became obvious that the Mexican army would be defeated, Santa Anna fled to the nearby woods. He thought he could hide his identity by dressing like a common soldier. When he was captured by Texan scouts, he was brought back to Sam Houston. His identity was given away when his own soldiers saw him and shouted, "El Presidente."
Once the Texans knew it was really Santa Anna, they told him to make his soldiers leave Texas in order to spare his life. Texas President David Burnett and Mexican President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna signed the Treaty of Velasco, ending the war. The Mexican government refused to accept the treaties of Velasco. They said they were illegal because Santa Anna was a prisoner and feared for his life when he signed them. Nevertheless, the Mexican army did retreat, and the Texans considered themselves free. They set up a government and became the Republic of Texas.
The bravery of the soldiers who fought in the Texas Revolution cannot be questioned. They considered freedom more important than their own lives. They were willing to die for what they believed in. Their story will never be forgotten. Let us always remember the Alamo, let us always remember Goliad, and let us always remember the importance of freedom.
Okay, I hate using the microphone, but it's going to talk. I know I'm nice and loud.